The morning sun glowed softly over the high school gate. A frail-looking girl with a beanie covering her head stood quietly, gripping her backpack straps. The laughter started softly at first, then louder. "Hey, Cancer girl! You lose your hair again?" The words sliced through the air like blades. The crowd of students chuckled, one of them even snapping a photo. But what none of them knew, what no one could even imagine, was that the girl's father, standing just across the street in a parked truck, watching everything in silence, was a Navy SEAL who had survived war zones most men couldn't even imagine. And when his little girl broke that final tear, he didn't just see a bully child. He saw an enemy attack on his family. That day, lessons were about to be taught. Not with fists, but with discipline, truth, and the kind of strength that changes lives forever. Mia Parker was only 16, but her eyes had already seen battles most kids her age couldn't even spell. The fight wasn't in the desert or some distant country, it was in her own body. At 12, doctors told her she had leukemia. Chemotherapy, radiation, the endless hospital smell, she'd survived it all. By 16, she was cancer-free, but the scars didn't fade as easily. Her hair hadn't fully grown back. She still wore beanies, soft ones her dad bought for her in every color. He called them crowns of courage. Her father, Lieutenant Commander Jack Parker, had served 20 years in the Navy SEALs. A man of few words but endless strength, Jack was both her protector and her hero. He'd faced ambushes, deep-sea missions, and explosions. Yet, nothing terrified him more than the sight of his little girl in pain. When Mia finally convinced him to let her go back to public school after years of home tutoring, Jack hesitated. "You sure you're ready, kiddo?" She smiled faintly. "Dad, I fought cancer. I can handle high school." But high school wasn't ready for her strength. From day one, whispers followed her like shadows. "That's the girl who had cancer. She wears wigs. She's weird." At first, she ignored it. Her dad had taught her that silence was sometimes the loudest response. But the teasing grew. It wasn't just words. Someone once snatched her beanie during lunch and threw it in the trash. Another time, she found "bald baby" written on her locker in red marker. Still, Mia held her head high. She'd survived something far worse than their cruelty. But one Monday morning changed everything. It started like any other day. The buses hissed, engines roared, and the gates buzzed with chatter. Mia walked in, holding her backpack tight. 3 girls leaned against the gate, the self-proclaimed queens of the school, Lexi, Jenna, and Brooke. Lexi smirked. "Well, if it isn't Cancer Girl. Did your hospital forget to keep you this time?" Jenna laughed. "I heard chemo fries your brain. Maybe that's why she walks like a zombie." Mia kept walking. But then Brooke stepped in front of her, blocking the way. "Hey, we're talking to you. Shut up and answer when someone speaks." Mia whispered, "Please, just let me go." Brooke sneered, "What, you gonna cry now?" That's when they said it. "Shut up, Cancer Girl." The words hit harder than any bullet. Her backpack slipped from her hands. Her lips trembled, but she didn't cry, not in front of them. She turned and walked away. What she didn't see was the old black truck parked across the street. Inside, Jack Parker had seen everything. His jaw tightened. His calloused hand gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He had always taught Mia to fight her battles with grace, but this wasn't a battlefield she had chosen. That night, Jack didn't storm to the school. He didn't call the bullies' parents. He simply sat with Mia at the dinner table. "You're quiet today," he said softly. She forced a smile. "Just school stuff." Jack leaned forward, eyes steady. "You want to talk about it?" Mia shook her head. "I'm fine, Dad." But she wasn't. When she went to bed, she cried quietly into her pillow, tears she hadn't shed even during chemo. Jack stood outside her door, hearing the muffled sobs. That was all it took. The next morning, he put on his uniform. Not the SEAL combat gear, but something else, the father's armor of calm and control. It was time to teach a lesson, one that no textbook could offer. The next morning, Jack dropped Mia at school. But he didn't drive away. He parked near the gate and waited, pretending to read a newspaper. He watched the same girls gather again. Same laughter. Same cruel energy. But this time, when they opened their mouths, a deep, commanding voice interrupted them. "Excuse me." The girls froze. Jack stepped out of his truck, 6 feet of quiet authority, wearing a navy blue jacket with his insignia pinned neatly. His presence alone silenced the air. "You three," he said, his tone calm but firm. "Do you know who that young lady is?" Lexi swallowed. She's my daughter," Jack interrupted. "And the bravest person I've ever met." Silence. You could hear a pin drop. Students nearby stopped walking, staring at the scene. Jack continued, "You see, while you spend your time laughing at her, she's survived something that could have broken the strongest of men. She spent years in hospitals. Lost her hair, her strength, her childhood. And still, she smiled. Still, she fought. She didn't ask for pity. She asked for respect." The girls looked down, ashamed. "But since you don't understand what strength looks like," Jack added, "maybe you'll learn something else today, what discipline looks like." He turned toward the principal, who had walked out upon hearing the commotion. After a brief conversation, the school arranged a special assembly that same week, Courage Beyond the Classroom. Mia didn't know what her dad had planned until that day arrived. As she sat in the auditorium, lights dimmed, a video began to play pictures of her, from hospital beds to her first day back at school. Her story narrated by her father's voice. When the lights came up, Jack stood on stage. "This," he said, pointing at Mia, "is a warrior. Not because she fought in war, but because she fought for life." He turned toward the crowd. "If any of you have ever laughed at someone for being different, you've never understood courage. Heroes aren't in movies, they're sitting beside you, every single day." The entire room stood up, even the bullies. Lexi and her friends walked to Mia, eyes filled with tears. "We're sorry," Lexi whispered. "We didn't know." Mia hesitated, then smiled softly. "Now you do." From that day forward, everything changed. Mia wasn't Cancer Girl anymore, she was the girl who beat it. She joined the student council, spoke about strength and kindness, and started a small support group for kids facing illness. Her story spread through the school and beyond. Reporters covered it, calling it the Navy SEAL's lesson on courage. And every morning afterward, when Jack dropped her at the gate, Mia didn't walk with her head down. She walked like a survivor. Like a soldier's daughter. Like a girl who had finally found her voice again. Direct hit ending message, perfect for the YouTube outro. Life will always have battles, some we choose, some we don't. But true strength isn't about fighting with fists. It's about standing tall, even when the world tries to knock you down. And remember, sometimes the quietest souls are carrying the loudest stories of courage. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Because strength, kindness, and courage, those are things worth spreading. Sparkling Heart.